And as always, we'll begin with three deep breaths. So let's take a deep breath in through the nose and softly let that out of the mouth. In again through the nose, softly out of the mouth. Last one in through the nose and hold it for a moment. And let out a nice sigh if that feels good. Today's topic is going to be money, morality, and the modern healer. So today's conversation is one that I've been very excited about, and I feel like is a big topic in the communities that we all run in. So many of us in the healing, wellness, and spiritual spaces, we are devoted to peace and liberation and healing, which is beautiful. But at the same time, we're also navigating money, sustainability, and worth. So my guest today is Jacob Tahiliani. Tahiliani?
Tahiliani.
Tahiliani, there we go. And he has been courageously exploring the question that I feel is very edgy and taboo within these spaces. And that question is, what does it look like to, and then in his words, make peace profitable? He is a spiritual coach that is rooted in the health and wellness world. And recently, I have been very lucky to see him openly exploring what it means to work with and market to wealthy populations, not from a place of extraction, but rather from a place of responsibility, impact, and integrity. And so, Jacob, thank you so much for today. I'm very excited.
Dan, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. It's been fun watching your content pop up on my feed as well. And you're an amazing coach and healer yourself. So I'm happy to be here and chat with you more. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, of course. And yes, for background on that, as many of the people in my community know, I am a TikTok slut. I love a good scroll and I love to be learning on my TikTok because there's so much information that we can learn. And Jacob and his videos started popping up, and I loved how bold and courageous you were to just kind of drop it in there. And of course, I think the first time I commented on one of your videos, it was people going up against you about making money when it comes to spirituality. And I was like, dude, you're killing it. You're doing it. Once people start coming up against you, you know you've won. And that kind of really got the ball rolling for us to be connected and have this conversation today. And so I want to start with a bit of your background, Jacob, because I feel like not only is it important, I want everybody in my community to know kind of where you've came from, but also in terms of making money and also being in the health and wellness space, where we come from does impact how we move within the world. So I really want to invite you to share with us what you feel comfortable sharing with us, and maybe a question that I can pose to kind of open up that space is like, what was spirituality and your relationship like to money, wealth, and righteousness like growing up Mormon?
Interesting question. And this will be an interesting answer too, because it might not be exactly what you would expect, because there's some flow. So growing up, as Dan just mentioned, I grew up Mormon. And like a very deeply religious family. My dad's an immigrant and moved from Canada down to the US, and the church was like his whole life. Like that's what really like brought him stability. And for my mom, it was a huge part of her family as well. And so they of course met, they had us, and that was from the time I was a kid, just absolutely massive and like the biggest focal point. And so as I was growing up, that was by either design or by like deep interest on my part, my main focal point as well, where I was like, this is really, really like a fun thing. Like I like church. Church is cool, right? And so I became like a super goody two shoes in the church and like very much uh absolutely loved it. I've loved theology. I've loved like exploring all of that. And then as time went on, I got older. For those of you who are not familiar with the Mormons, they're a very tight-knit community for one. But for two, every time that a young man turns 18, they're called to go on a mission and be a missionary. And so you're a missionary for 2 years. And it's like, voluntary, but it's very, 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 very heavily like if you don't go on a mission, you're kind of lesser than, but it is voluntary, right? Like that kind of mentality. They're very kind of passive aggressive in their language. But so I was a missionary from 18 to 20, and I was in Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. And like going there and trying to teach the gospel as I understood it was pretty interesting. It was a like, oh wait, there's a like literally the first day I had a Pentecostal come up to me and be like, "You're going to hell." And I was like, "Oh, good to meet you too. Thanks. Like we both believe in Jesus. Like I don't see why
Mm,
you're saying this, right?" And he was like, goes on and yaps, and that started making me think like, okay, what like what is this about? Like that was probably my first like real seed outside of Mormonism that like
mm,
started germinating into what eventually spirituality would be. Um, but on the mission and in the church, it's interesting because wealth is seen as a like good thing. It's seen as like you're prospering in the world. The Lord is blessing you. And I'm fortunate enough that my family grew up pretty affluent. And so watching my dad as an entrepreneur and seeing him in the business world and like doing good there, a lot of the people that I knew growing up were also in the business world doing very well in their own respects. And just like they would all say like, God blessed me from like the typical religious side of things, right? And that was always interesting to me, right? Because they always attribute God as like their first person, the person in their corner. Um, but then kind of flashing forward a little bit, I do my mission, love my mission, was in leadership and stuff in there for a long time. That led me to asking much deeper questions because people would ask me things like life and death questions, and my friend passed from taking their own life, like what happens to them,
mm,
and things kind of like that. And so dropping into conversations like that with people on the mission was a very beautiful thing. Like it was like like watching people be from just in distress and then turning to peace again. Like that
mm,
was probably the most beautiful thing to me. And so I was very fortunate enough to have that experience in that background and understand very deeply like there is something here. I might not know like at that time I called it Jesus, but I was like there's something, right? So flash forward a little bit, left my mission, was in college for a little. COVID happens. And by this time, my parents are getting ready for a divorce. And I am starting to really doubt the church. And I'm like, I had all these questions that haven't gone answered. And I've studied the theology really deeply. I wanted to teach seminary. And I started seeing, like, wait, there's inconsistencies in their doctrine. And, like, how do I reconcile that? I can't, like, in good consciousness. And so in my mind, I was like, let me go ask a little tangent here. I was like, let me go ask Reddit about like let me find the ex-Mormon subreddit and be like, hey, what made you guys leave? Because I was like,
mm,
yeah, because at that point I'd studied very deeply and I'd argued with every single like anti-Mormon person you could think of, at least in my mind. And so I was like, let me go talk to the people that left. And like if I can prove this to myself by, them, then like I'm fine, but I'm gonna do this honestly.
mm,
And so in my mind, like truth is kind of like an equation. It's like if you do this every time, you will get this type of result, right? It's like chemistry. And so it's like, well, if like if they show me like what made them leave and I can like properly prove them wrong, then I'm fine, right? But the reverse also could be true. So
mm,
ask them, they're like, hey, we've all been there. Here you go. And I was like, oh, thanks. And then immediately my testimony crumbled like that day.
mm,
And that was one of the most disorienting and the hardest times of my life was that was my first real like dark night of the soul, if you want to call it that.
mhm,
And like first real awakening experience, but absolutely changed my entire life by far. Like I went from having this big community of people that I could always go to and a place that felt like home to now not even really feeling at home in myself and having to try to figure out like navigating deconstruction, which I think is a whole other topic. But long story short, as I started doing that, navigating that, I was atheist for a little bit. then started working my way back towards spirituality because I was like, oh wait, that like peaceful feeling is still here. Like the church
Mm,
doesn't have a monopoly on that, although I don't really know what it is. And so that really like introduced me to the world of spirituality. And it was interesting because as I made that transition, I started getting my own money wounds again, where it was just like, I'm not worthy of being rich. I can't charge for this, like all those kinds of things, right? Because at least for me, I found it at a time when I didn't have any money. And so
mhm,
it was just like, this should be free kind of mentality, right? And like, while I agree you can do a lot of things for free, flashing forward a little bit more, I think practitioners should charge for their work because you're actually doing work with people. Um, but it's been interesting going from generally like really no problems with money, going through an awakening, now being like, well, the material world is only half of the picture and all that kind of stuff, right? To them being like, okay, well, I am a spirit living in a material world. Like I have a body, and this world that we live in runs on money. Like we can't just deny that
mm,
fact, right? We can give away as much as
mhm,
we want, but it runs on money. You got to pay
mhm.
rent and buy food, unless you have a farm and you built your house.
Yes. So I want to say first off, thank you so much for sharing because I do feel like that piece of you is so important. And I feel so VIP that I got to find that out so that I could bring that to the podcast. Um, and to respond to this last piece that you're hitting on, so I live in Pisac, Peru. So I live in the Sacred Valley, but specifically, I live next to a town called Pisac, Peru. And one of the issues that I have with Pisac, Peru is the spiritual community that comes here and then they don't work. Or they work, but they don't make any fucking money. And it reminds me of fucking Sedona, Arizona. It reminds me of San Diego, California. Like you've got people there that are making money, but like the majority of the people are just like, oh, like they use all the word. They're like, but the codes, they just come through me and I must give them, and all that stuff. and um and that's been something that I've struggled with being here because at the end of the day, Dylan, my partner, makes a joke sometimes where he's like, I can't stand the people that they turn around and they go, oh my gosh, God always provides for me. And Dylan's like, no, God didn't provide for you. I worked, I cooked this meal, and now you're eating it at my house. I provided for you, And so I feel like that is something that runs in a lot. I won't say that necessarily about the New York spiritual communities, though, which is where I'm originally from. Everybody's kind of a bit of a hustler there. However, people still struggle to charge. Whereas here, people are just like, I'm not going to charge for anything. I could live off bananas and bread all day. Bitch, I do like to eat. I like ice cream. I like cookies. I like getting my hair done and my nails done. You know what I mean? Dylan and I, we love going to the spa. We love to spend money and do things. And so, with that, I have a question for you. When you started to now, you left what you had always known. You had this good money mindset, and now you're kind of coming through this way. I'm interested to know because I know the people on social media that were coming up against you being like, nah, like this is spiritual work, like it's got to come from the heart and the soul and whatever other, bullshit that they throw in there. But have you had resistance from any of your peers or your inner circle now that you've started talking about this?
No, support, like all support.
Hell yes.
They've actually been more for that message than I had initially. Like, because a lot of them have known me for a minute now and have known me through the initial awakening phase. And like this past year has been very grounding on this topic specifically. Because for a
Mm.
minute there, I was giving away a lot of work for free. But then I was like, well, I can't pay my rent now. So like, what do I do?
Yes. Yes.
Um, but no, a lot of my friends, basically all my friends are entrepreneurs. And so to them, it's
Mm.
just like, well, duh, why aren't you charging? Like, it's like a
Mm.
very, and I'm very blessed to have entrepreneurs that are much more experienced than I am around me and just like generally good people. And they're all conscious people too, which I think is a very interesting part about this. Most spiritual people that are just strictly spiritual have never really hung out with entrepreneurs before. And
Hmm.
like they're like, well, they don't get it, right? They're just too 3D. And it's like, nah,
Hmm.
bitch, like these guys know their shit. Like business is a spiritual expression in a lot of ways. And so it's interesting to see like I was like, yeah, like I kind of want to charge and like charge more. And they're like, yeah, dude, do it. Like, why wouldn't you? And not only that, but like, you need a testimonial? Let me do a session with you. And it's like, okay,
Hmm.
cool, right? It's not always that flow and smooth, but like in general, they're very willing to help out however, and they know like what's needed in order to grow. And so they're like,
Hmm.
yeah, man, you want to bring this to the world? Happy to support. So,
I think that speaks to such an important piece of being an entrepreneur and having a business is being surrounded by the right people and the people that aren't going to. I've had my business now for 8 years,
wow.
and I started off with my business where I only worked with the special needs population. And it wasn't until I had one of my students, adorable little chick, and she turns to me and she's like, Miss Dan, how many yoga classes do you teach after you're with us? And I was like, I'm tired. So Miss Dan doesn't really teach that much after she's here. She looks at me and she was like, well, you should do it full time because you're really good at it. And I was like, wow, you're really right, and so I sometimes credit me actually jumping into it to this child because, like, yeah, I was doing it on the weekends, I was helping out in ceremonies, I was doing sessions after work, but like I couldn't do it full time. And so I feel like sometimes spirit has a weird way of using someone. Like, I didn't expect this 13-year-old autistic child who I had just been arguing with to turn to me and be like, you need to start a business and just leave. And so bless her for what she has given me in my life, but it speaks to having the right people around you when you are creating a business. And I also really resonate with the idea that having a business is probably the most spiritual thing I have ever done. I've been talking to the dead since I was 2 or 3 years old, easily, effortlessly. I do a ton of plant medicine, all of these things. Yes, they're super spiritual, but having a business that's a reflection of what you want to grow, because it doesn't always have to be spiritual business. And I would be interested to get your opinions or any intuitive hits that come off of that.
So right off of that immediately, like that was the first thing that business challenged me on and continues to challenge me on is my beliefs around money, where it's just like, how much can I charge? And then why don't you charge more? Why don't you charge more? Why don't you make a bigger community? Like, why don't you express more in the world? And I think that like right out the gate, spiritual people can be like, well, that's like egotistical. Like, why do you want to be like big and in the world, right? Because ego big equals bad, right? And it's like, no, bitch, like that's not how it works. Like it's ego is what limits us from expressing. And like in this case, it's like, well, no, you want to be a divine expression in the world. Like you can say everything is us because that's true, right? But you are the unique expression of you. And business is like that unique expression in the 3D is how I see it at least. And so when it comes to literally any other type of business, I had a conversation about this yesterday actually on the podcast. But it's a friend of mine who does work with some higher caliber entrepreneurs. He's like more of a spirit coach as well, or spiritual coach. And he was talking about how business is the reflection of the leader. Like the business's growth and its restrictions are the reflection of the leader. Like the business itself is an entity on its own. Like it's got its own kind of consciousness in a way, right? And so like if the leader is like really, I need to like hold on to really, really tight and like strangle my people almost. Like it's not going to grow at all. Like you hit a ceiling, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's only until the leader is like, I need to learn to like relax and let go and then like detach from the business a little bit and be like, I'm still, a CEO, right? You can still kind of keep that identity if you want, but like let it bloom, let it grow. But like that is, especially for men, can be tricky when the business is your entire identity, right? So it's it's not just spiritual businesses. It's I would say every business at some point or another a person reaches that.
It's I love that you're bringing that up because so I don't consider myself a business coach in any way of the form. However, a lot of the clients that I do work with, or even the people that come on our retreats, We always say that sometimes our retreats end up being this like creative portal where then everyone leaves and they all start their own businesses. We're like, this is beautiful.
Really? That's
Yes.
cool.
Well, I think when you're in a room of people that are creatives and entrepreneurs, so first you've got Dylan and I who are creatives and entrepreneurs, and then other people in the space, they start revealing to each other, yeah, well, I worked on this and I did that. And then
Hmm.
somehow towards the end of the whole week, they're all like, yeah, well, I should do this. And they're like, yeah, and you should do that.
Yeah,
We've moved it.
yeah.
Exactly. And so, but when I work with my clients one on one, a lot of them are also creatives, and some of them are professionals. They work in law, they work in the healthcare field,
Hmm.
and they're also creatives. So they've also got this. So when I was still working full time, I worked for the Department of Education. I worked as a teacher's assistant. It's called a para, in New York, a paraprofessional. And so I was doing that alongside leaving the school building and trying to calm myself down and then seeing my clients after work. So I also see that duality where there are people working your regular 9 to 5s that they have so much creative beauty bursting at the seams. They just don't know how to give it to the world just yet, which is beautiful to witness. And also, I wanted to also bring that piece in when you are the business, especially even for me, like, Dylan says it sometimes because we now have the business together. We used to have separate businesses and now we have a conjoined business, but he's like, you're the face of the business. When people think of the business, they know Dylan is going to be there, right? But they think of your face. They're seeing you on social media, they're seeing you on the podcasts. I'm the first person to welcome them into the space when they come in, you know? And so he was like, you are the face. And so I'm interested for what you would have to say about being the face, and how, like, is there something that you specifically do in your life to detach a little bit more? Because I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast specifically are going to be like, okay, what can I do to create healthy space?
Like healthy space from their business.
Healthy
Or
space from their business. Yes.
okay. Well, I'd say like right out the gate, I mean, super simple basics of just like having time for self-meditation, self-reflection. That's what it's been for me. And then also like when you find someone that can fulfill a role better than you can, give the responsibility to them. Like that's I kind of felt that with Daphne, the lady that I have in the and friend that I have in the school community right now. Where I was like, she's, 20 some odd years experience in this area. And I'm like, I don't have that level of experience, but I want my people to be like treated well. And like I'll be there as much as I can. And I want to make sure they're doing good. And I want this to scale past me. And then even last night, so I've got two communities that I'm working on. So the first one is the Make Peace Profitable community, which is for the spiritual business owners. And then the one I like literally just launched that I'm still kind of workshopping the name a little bit, but it's called Modern Mystics.
Mhm.
And it's going to be for a coaching community based around this technique that I built, as well as just like helping people navigate the spiritual side of things. And I had a conversation on live last night with another friend who I'd met through TikTok, which TikTok's awesome, love it. Um, but he was chatting about like all sorts of like very intricate bits in psychology and like like mapping out everything. And I was like, I very rarely have met people that have like been at that caliber of knowledge, I guess. And then having this like moment of reflection where it's like this guy could be like a leader in the community too. And so like, but being like okay with they could be a leader,
Mhm.
right? Like it doesn't have to all be me. And so it's I think that's like the first and really main major hurdle. And like, if anything, once that's crossed, if they haven't even like, seen that yet, it's probably in the field. They just have to like open up to see it, you know?
I love that. It is a piece of control. And I definitely feel like I can resonate with that as well, especially for many years that I didn't think I wanted my business to be this full time thing. So I did every little thing on my own. And in some ways, I still do a lot of things. And also, like, we visited New York in November. And it was really easy for me to have the other people that I had facilitate for ceremony, like, they just, okay, yeah, you guys know how I like the space set up. Like something as simple as that, many years ago, I would have been like, no, I have to do the flower altar, which sounds so crazy to me now because it's like the least of my concerns is the flower altar, But I feel like that's a good example from my own life where I've been able to be like, okay, they know what I like to see. And even if I don't like it, it's still going to be a fucking altar. We can use it. It's fine.
Exactly.
So I love that. So I also want to try to take that and then start to bring in what prompted you to have conversations. Now, the first video that I saw of yours, I commented on, and then I started going through all your videos. So you ended up at a networking event or an expo. It was a high price point to get in, and then you started having all these conversations. And so, what even prompted you to be like, you know what, this is something that I need to get into?
So, and I love the way you framed it because for clarity with everyone, like this is an area that I'm still actively exploring. Like I've met a lot of people that have had good success here already, which is people that I'm interviewing on the podcast. But that was a very fascinating thing. So I'm fortunate enough to have like a good mentor in this space who is like also I think he's 15 years an energy healer and like, 20 some odd years an entrepreneur. So like the combo of spiritual and entrepreneur is actually a little bit more common than you'd expect. But at this event in specific, like got comped a ticket because it was like $7,000 to get into, which I was like, damn. And then, comp some room because I got to be able to go and stay with them. But going in and then like talking with all of these entrepreneurs, like they literally had so for those of you who may know him, his name is Evan Pagan. He's like an OG coach, which I didn't really know much about him until that meeting or that seminar. And on stage, it's him and Alex Moscow's event called Event Profit Engine. And this community of people, they're already like high six-figure, seven-figure earners. Like they're very established in their spaces and they have like they're just ninjas in business, right? And they want to get better. Like that's always the entrepreneurial side of things is like
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing good, but I could always be doing better, right? I think it's a conversation in of itself. But um at this event, they were talking about selling to ultra premium clients and like people that are going to be paying 25,000, 50,000, like $100,000 for offers and, or more, it kind of depends, right? But like just that by itself was like, whoa, okay, so there's people that are willing to buy a couple days for that much from someone, right? Or like a year-long program that has like touch points built in, like any other program, right? And so he goes on stage to say like there are six major areas that the ultra premium buyers will buy. And it was like relationships, finance, managing finances is like a business growth one. But the one that obviously stood out to me was spirituality, like as a mega niche that they're starting to really flow into. And so I was like, that's really interesting. I I knew that people were interested in it, but like I didn't realize to like that degree, right? It's like, oh, I mean, you think about it, it's like, well, duh, everyone's spiritual, but like at the same time, it's like, whoa, okay, so people are like willing to do that, and some of the examples that they would talk about or gave were just like, a 5 day, you know, 15,000, $20,000 Vipassana retreat and like everything's provided. It's in a luxury location. You have a master meditator. Like it's a full suite, right? You can't just drop like a link and then expect someone to buy that from you. You have to provide like an experience. But that that really gave me the like actual like shift. Like, oh, people actually want this. And that's where I shot that video. And like and had tons of conversations actually after that with people just about that topic. So yeah.
Super exciting. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more into that background. So, the question that I would have then going forward is, do you feel like marketing is the same in terms of speaking to somebody who is wealthy versus somebody that, like, I feel like most of the people that are going to listen to this podcast are going to be like, okay, I know, they might be like, I know how to market already, right? And I've been marketing to the people that I'm in kind of the same tax bracket within, right? And so, like, is it the same? And now, before you answer, I will also say, I, being from New York, and I had even mentioned something to you where it was my brother who brought up to me a while ago that he was like, yo, he was like, you got to change the way in which you market your offerings. And because my brother is like, big sports guy. We are so opposite and yet so similar, my brother and I. But he's like super into sports. And he was like, Dan, like a lot of these athletes, they work their whole life just to be an athlete. And then a lot of them retire quite early because it's a physical body thing. I don't really know what I'm talking about when I talk about that, but that's what my brother has told me. And so my brother was like, for a lot of them, it is this like existential dread of like, okay, then what do I do with my life? And he was like, Dan, what you do would be incredible for them. He was like, but they don't want to see you paint with your period blood and talk about how beautiful the clouds are as they go by, you know? So I would be, you have like a wealthy laugh. I love that. You laughed and I was like, oh, that's a wealthy laugh. um, so I would be interested to know, like, with the conversations that you've been having, how do you feel the shift in vocabulary has to be?
So I think there's like two elements in it. Like, and this is something I'm actively mapping out still, just so everyone's aware. Like, the main through line I've seen with everything is it's no longer about price because they have money, it's about time. Like, time is the most valuable asset to them. Because at this point, they are very dialed in business. They're very dialed in their life. And just like any other entrepreneur, they're wanting to exceed and like, oh, I'm going even further, right? Like I'm becoming the best version of myself. And I know I need this to some extent or another. I think like from strictly marketing, you can look at like 40 Years of Zen. They're a really amazing company for those of you who aren't familiar with it. They service that demographic of people. They talk about optimization and just like getting more out of life, doing more, like all those kinds of things, right? But more than marketing, more than any of that, the thing that I've seen consistently and from every mentor I've talked to is like it boils down into very simple, go find someone, get a testimonial. And the wealthy, like they don't buy off of marketing, they buy off of referrals. So you have to like actually work your way in somehow or another. And the best way to do that, from what I've seen and what I've experienced, has been going to events and then just talking to people. And you don't pitch someone at the event either. This isn't like a pitch fest. This is a like, let's get to know each other and see if we like each other. And then like, oh, you're cool. What do you do? Like that's kind of the flow of conversation. And then you can talk about your thing, right? But like I literally talked to my mentor last night because I was at another business mixer thing. And I mentioned to him, like, yeah, a big question that I've been getting in the community has been like, oh, how do I actually talk to these people and like that kind of stuff. He's like, never ask them what they do. He's like, ever. He's like, just ask them, what are you most excited about? Like, what do you find like most interesting in your life right now? Like, it's literally make a friend and then do business with a friend. Like, they can
Mm,
switch really fast between those two. I think is another thing that people don't really realize is like, you can be very, and this is something that kind of threw me off when I was like really, and to an extent I'm still trying to keep up with it, is like you can have a conversation with them, you can drop into business and they'll be very, very laser focused in the business side of things. They're like, oh, like if you stutter, like you're not on your shit, they pick that up and they're like, oh, he's not as experienced or he's not as whatever, right? Like you can see it in their like calculations, right? Or they're like, oh, he knows his shit. Or, oh, I've heard of you. Tell me more about what you do. But that's
mm,
usually the flow. I've heard about you. What do you do? And then like you did this for my friend. Can you do it for me? And that's that circle. Like it's
mm,
very rarely marketing. It's basically all referrals.
mm. I love this because I love the way that you express these conversations, which is why I was so grateful that you wanted to do the podcast because I want people to feel into. Some of you are watching this, so you're seeing how chill Jacob is. But for those of you that are listening on Spotify or Apple, like I just like feel how calm his words are. Like feel what a like you're like a very gentle ocean, right? Still an ocean, still can move, still can get stuff done, but there is a simplicity of like being calm to it that I think, especially in today's society and the world and economically, people are just really hoping that it's going to be that next thing to give them the break. And so they're always kind of at their edge because they're like, is this going to be that moment? I don't know if you saw it, but Alex Earl, now her family, she's an influencer on TikTok. I love that you're not on that side of TikTok. You're so funny. You're so funny. So basically, many years ago, she started posting "Get Ready with Me's" at when she was in college, and that it's called like the some of the marketing strategists will call it the Alex Earl effect. She's extremely brilliant in marketing, and her father is very helpful. And anyway, Netflix now has a TV show coming out about her and her family and her friends. And so people are saying like, "Oh my god, like I should have been doing these get ready with me's this whole time." And it's like, but yes, that's what we were saying is like she continued to stick with it. She showed up. She was chill about it. She wasn't posting these get ready with me's and saying, I fucking hope everybody listens to this and they like it and they comment. She
Please, please,
was,
please.
yeah, she was posting it half hungover, half ready to go back out again, just being consistent. And that's also a piece that I have found. I'm very grateful that I have always been consistent. But I find that to be some type of struggle, at least with, and I don't know if you found that with your clients or in your community where people are just, now, speaking as somebody with a womb, I do understand the lack of consistency when it comes to the hormones each month. And still, I put things in place so that when I am close to bleeding and I want to burn the world down, while I do that, my business still has the opportunity for things to be posted and things to keep running because I know that that's going to happen for me. So I'd be interested to know if you've seen that lack of consistency and obviously, maybe I shouldn't say obviously, but how that could translate quite negatively to trying to get into those wealthier spaces.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've seen it myself and I've seen it in just community members in general. Like, I'm not going to talk for anyone specifically in the community, but I'll say the spiritual community more broadly. And maybe I should just use myself as an example here. Like, especially as I was initially getting started, I had like a pretty severe lack of consistency because of this idea of like, well, I like it feels like it's taking away from my spiritualness, right? Or whatever that means.
Mm.
And that's not the case at all. What's actually happening is you're integrating, right? Like you're returning back to the real world and realizing that you can be both. You can be in the real world and be a spiritual being at the same time, right? Like, because you have been this whole time, now you're just aware of it. And so with this process, like, and in the higher echelons, I guess, like they're very consistent. Like everything that you said is exactly what they would do, where it's just like, hey, I know I'm going to be in like this headspace or in this place at this time, usually pretty consistently or at some point. So I'm going to prepare ahead and make sure I am okay. Like my business is okay. Like that's the reality of it. You have to like operate like that.
Mm.
The business doesn't give two shits if you're feeling good or not. Like, and customers don't really either, to be quite honest. Like
Mm.
they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's nice, but like, are you gonna fix my problem?" Right? And so it's like you got to have stuff in place to be ready to like fix people's problems when they come up. And so I would say like the lack of consistency is like the biggest killer in not just this, but in business in general, I would say. Like people will remember the work that you do and they will wonder, why are you not doing it more consistently? And like, why are you not
Mm.
like out if this is so great, why are you not doing it more? Like that's typically the reaction, right? And you can't just say, well, it's because spiritual this or spiritual that. If they're not like super woo-woo, that doesn't make any sense to them. So it's like, even if they are, it's kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
okay, because a lot of them are, right? They're like, well, I get that, and why aren't you doing it?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. It is very you're right in terms of the spiritual aspect as well. I think people feel like if I don't take all that woo woo space, then my business can't run as properly, which I do understand because you do need that woo woo space, but that woo woo space also needs to be like held by systems or other forms of operation so that like yes, I can go outside, get my titties in some grass for hours, no problem, but it's not like I'm going to have issues if I do that. Or in terms of like long term stuff, when we have people come on our retreats, we also, so the retreat that we do in Peru, it's 7 days long, but it's a 2 month experience because we do a month of pre integration and a month of post integration. So usually at some point, we're asking them to scale back on business. We're asking them to scale back on family life, on friend life, like all of that stuff. We're asking them to slowly bring it down. So by the time they come and they sit with medicine, it's kind of really just about them. And
Hmm.
so sometimes when we have people that are of, I don't know, I mean, that are wealthier maybe than what my bank account looks like today currently, that they've had to prepare for that before they even started the pre integration, that they were letting other people know, hey, at this point during this process, I'm going to be pulling back. Then in 15 days after that, I'm going to be in Peru. Don't call me, but this is everything that you need to know so that everything can run properly, and then I'll be back around. You know what I mean? Because usually they're so excited and ready to get back into it after that sometimes we have to remind them like slow, and they're like, no, I'm ready, which is beautiful, don't get me wrong. um but I'm also, yeah, I just feel like that lack of consistency also goes into the idea that like people want a simpler life. And I can really resonate with that. I can really understand that. Mental illness is a real thing. It's something that I talk about quite openly and all the time. And also, that's why I've always been in therapy. And also, that's why I've always had other healers that I went to so that I can make sure if I really need to come to a full halt, I'm making that decision fully and knowing that it's going to impact my business instead of just being like, well, actually, I kind of fell off of it at this point. And it's very like, it's just not strong. Like if I can be strong in my conviction to say like I'm taking a break from all of this, then I feel like it's better than just being kind of laissez-faire with it, where you're like, yeah, I kind of pulled back and I kind of did this and I kind of did that. I also feel like that has to do with verbiage, as I was saying the word kinda, that some people aren't very strong in their words. So another question that I have for you in terms of just like what you feel like you've been seeing is, do you believe that, and I feel like I already know what you're going to say, but in your beliefs, and then tell us everything, our responsibility as healers, some people very much so believe that you must be accessible, and some people feel like it's okay for you to be sustainable. I feel like I land somewhere in the middle because I've always said that if I have clients that are able to pay me before, I no, not after. I get paid before. But as long as clients are willing and they're able to pay me prior, I can always help out somebody else that might actually need it, which is why we have scholarship spots for our retreats, which is why Dylan and I separately are always, we have people that we like to service for heavy discounts or for free, as long as the people are showing up to pay the prices. But people still have a problem with the prices that I put out there. So I'm wondering what you would say to somebody if they were like, no, but like as spiritual healers, shouldn't we be accessible? Or the other ones that are like, no, we should be sustainable.
I would say, I mean, like, I don't see why you can't do both in a sense. Like, I really like how you're looking at it, where it's like accessible in the sense of like, I mean, that this is what I'm building right now, so it's top of mind for me, but like school communities, where it's like you're not talking to me one on one, like every day, every second of the day, right? But you can get access to whatever knowledge and like do the healing work yourself with the tools that I've provided. And like you can go and do all that for a much easier price. But if you want to work one on one with me, you're gonna have to pay more money because I'm not going to do that shit for free. So it's higher touch, higher service, and a easier output for them. But like my look on it is like, why not both? Like, because I have that tug internally for me too, and I do lives where I play sound bowls, and that's my free stuff, right? And then it's just like, hey, like I get followers from it, that's great. And also like if people have stuff, because there's always someone that pops in the live that's like, I was having a really bad day, and like now I'm starting to like actually kind of relax. And at this point, the community's starting to build a little bit on those lives. And it's fascinating to see people like then coach each other through the process of healing. And so like I think you can have elements of being accessible. And I think like as the practice grows, it's very unsustainable to be accessible to like everyone all the time. Like that burned me out at my own coaching stuff, which is
Mhm.
why I'm kind of like that's a very relevant topic for me because I was like very available all the time and like it just it was very taxing, like very, very taxing. And so I was like, well, I want to like do this sustainably. So I've got to have stuff on both sides.
Mm, yes, I too. And I think I still struggle with that. And that's because I'm a nosy bitch. So I also just, I just always
Yeah.
want to know what's going on. I can be honest about that,
Same.
and so then another question to go forward is like, do you think the energy, right? Because I know we follow similar things and we're listening to similar people, and everybody talking right now about 2026, and it's, in numerology being a 1 year, and how in, the Chinese zodiac that it's changing to the year of the horse. Do you think that what's happening right now that you're immersed in, as well as other people, this is going to change the way of spiritual business going forward? Like, what is your
I hope so.
hypothesis?
Like, hypothesis is like, I've had this dream or vision of making peace profitable for a while now. It's been maybe like 2 years. And like, it's just now starting to take root, it seems like. Like those conversations, maybe it's just because I'm in the space a lot and that's my community now. But like in general, talking with people, seeing more and more people like experience their own awakening, and then like immediately going out and doing work with people for the most part. And then like, well, how do I like make this sustainable? And like a fair amount of, so I guess an example here and a little bit of clarity. I created my own kind of like energy healing somatic technique. There's a couple different ways that you could describe that, but in said technique, I've had a handful of people that are like, I want to learn this so I can go do it with my friends and my people, right? And like that desire has been growing a lot. And so like when it comes to spiritual business, like I think it is really growing. I think this is going to be a year where we see more of it. And on a more statistical side of things, like we have seen a huge drop off in religion, like traditional religion. And people want something that they can use to connect from like a more
Mm,
general standpoint. And like I see that everywhere. Like especially when I was just leaving the church and just like browsing these different online communities, like people will drop into philosophy, but like all the philosophers are depressed too, right? So it's like, okay, well, like, so where do you find the fulfillment? And the only happy people seem to be the Eastern people that are talking about spirituality, right? And so it's
yeah.
like, oh, okay, there's something there. There's something there. And then they like start diving into it, but then they get lost really fast. And so I
Mm,
think like that's where there's a huge gap in the market, in my opinion, for spiritual practitioners. Because it's like there's a lot of people that want this. And they like in my lives every night, there's usually people that are like, I've never heard this before. And I'm like, where do I learn more? Like, where else can I like look at this stuff, right? And like they crave it, they need it. So like for the practitioner that's willing to navigate their money wounds and their traumas around that, like there are people that want the work that they have that you have, right? It's just a matter of being out there consistently, as you mentioned earlier. So that would be my 2 cents on it.
hell yeah. I really hope that whoever is listening to this is also like feeling that inspiration to be reminded, because in a lot of these spiritual communities, and I can speak to my experience. I also have a lot of therapists in my community that serve certain communities in the world that are not in a space of abundance, that are in a space of fear right now, and for good reason, with everything that's specifically going on in the United States at this time. And so there's so much fear in those conversations. Although those conversations are so important for us to continue to have, I feel like it's also really important to take the time to immerse yourself in content like Jacob's because there is a sense of hope in it, and there is a sense of like, okay, actually, even though I've been, serving my people or in the community and this is what I'm seeing, there is also this as well. And so I just really want everyone to be reminded that like the world is a crazy place and we can't just live in one extreme. It's so important. Like, don't turn a blind eye to anything that's happening in the US right now and the world in general. And also keep your eyes towards things that are hopeful. Keep your mind and your heart open towards things where you can grow. You can grow with others. You can grow financially. You can also just like fucking help people in the world, you know? So I I would love to know if there's anything else that's really on your heart and mind that you feel is important to share.
Yeah, actually, so as you were talking about that specifically having hope in like a dark world, like 2 points from a marketing perspective, I think it's actually really good for marketing for peace because when someone's in fear all the time, all they want is peace. Like people use like they're like, well, fear is a huge motivator, all those kinds of things, right? Like people are twice as motivated by that, which is why all of our systems run on it right now. But the
Yeah.
people that are experiencing fear and the pain and the suffering of the world just want peace. Like that's it. And like that's a huge opportunity for people that are willing that can actively and like succinctly say like, hey, I offer this. Like I can help you achieve that. And like having the confidence to help them actually achieve that, right? Like those people will forever be thankful to you, forever be thankful to you. And that ripples out into the rest of the world. Like a big reason why make peace profitable is the way it is because in my mind, it's like the world only changes when the people in the world change. Like the ones that are living here, right? All of us, we're the ones that created the world that we live in right now. So it has to be us. We have to take some accountability that change it. And it only changes from the inside out, which is why I think spiritual work is so important. Is because it's like if we're the ones facilitating that interchange, if we change enough people, the world begins to change itself, right? All on its own. And then we think about someone like Jesus, who, in my opinion, is still amazing dude outside of religion, right? I think religion kind of misconstrues him a little bit. But like you look at him, and he is the pinnacle example of being in the world but not of the world and being
Mm,
like I like look at everything that he's done. It's always I hang out with the sinners, the prostitutes, the tax collectors, like all of those people, like the bad people, right? When
right.
in reality the bad people are the ones that actually want to grow the most and the ones that like will actually appreciate it most. So like there might be like a loud minority being like, well, that stuff isn't wanted or needed or things like that, but for the silent majority, it's a very much needed thing. And if we follow
Mm,
that example of Jesus in a sense, where he would go and do and teach and lift up the hands that hang down, that he strengthens the feeble knees, he saw the impact that he had. And it's like we have that same opportunity. I think we can create the same kind of change in the world. And so when we learn how
mm,
to do our own business correctly as well, that change becomes sustainable. Like that's the biggest gap in the marketplace I see as well is like peace and the spreading of peace right now is funded on donations for the most part.
yeah.
Whereas if it turns into like an actual business, and business isn't a dirty word in this case,
Mm,
right? Business is just a neutral term, just like anything else. It's like okay, like a business that promotes peace grows. And like
mm,
my moonshot vision is like there's an economy around this kind of stuff. People see very clearly like when I'm optimized internally, I can optimize externally. And
mm,
through that internal optimization, they begin to like love more, they connect more. Like there's so much more to it, right? But
mm,
I think there's I think we have a huge and very bright future ahead of us that we all can work towards, even if it feels kind of dismal right now.
mm. Thank you so much for saying all of that. I feel like I love when people are, first off, you have such an eloquent way of relaying that, and I love it. But also, too, I love when people like love Jesus for him being historically accurate, and really got the juice of what that man was trying to say. and how, yeah, I think he would have been on board for all of this also as well, because also seeing it from this other piece, I wanted to let you know, you have instilled such a difference in me. When I started this podcast, the first episode is Business Coaching and MLM. Because at that point, 2.5 years ago, I was like, any spiritual business coach at that point that I had had a conversation with, they wanted me to be a business coach. And I was like, I don't want to be a business coach. I want to do the healing work. And the reason that I loved your content off rip, literally, I was like, Dylan, you got to watch this guy. Listen to what he's saying. I'm like, he's got links. We got to look at the links. um, was because, which I will say, Jacob's school community that he has, which will be below in any of the show notes, no matter what platform you're on, you definitely want to get into it because there's a lot of beautiful information in there. But what I loved was that you weren't ushering me down that road. It was like you really heard that there were so many of us creatives. And instead of being like, well, for me to make money, you need to tell people that you're going to help them make money. You were like, no. And everything that you just said, you were like, yeah, like promote peace in the world and you can make money off of helping people find their fucking peace. I mean, you said it much more beautiful than I just recapped it. But with that being said, like I really just wanted to say thank you so much because it was so inspiring to see somebody who you've been helping so many people and I know you're still like I'm here and you're going many more places, right? But like I just really appreciate the way that you've worded all of these things and really are not trying to change people and just saying like just get clearer on how you can tell people how you heal. And then that will help you grow and that will also help your fucking communities as well. Hello.
Literally, literally. And like it's such a interesting thing because like for every spiritual avenue that I've seen, there is a way that you can make a business out of it and make it sustainable. Like I'm still exploring all of them myself, especially as people in the community are joining and asking questions. Like it's been an interesting exercise. But I genuinely think that anyone can make like a living off of spirituality if they're willing to like have the repetition. Like it is a consistency thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take longer and cost more money than you probably expect, and it'll be a little bit harder than you expect right out the gate. But is that vision not worth it?
Right.
Right? Like in my mind, it's like that's a future I want to work towards. I don't care how long it takes. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if I'm the only one singing that tune, which in this case I'm not, right? But like because we all are together, which I think is a really beautiful thing that makes me so happy every day. But like it's it's a real future. It is a very real future in my mind. I think that we can all work towards together. So it's just a
Yeah.
market. It's literally just a marketing problem. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's a good that's the good problem to have is
Yes.
figuring that piece out because we can figure it out. So my last question that I would love to ask is that I've asked everybody that has came and joined me on the podcast is if there is one word as a prayer that you would like to share with everyone that's heavy on your heart that you've been using these days or something that you feel the collective could utilize hearing.
One word. Hmm. The one that's been on it's between two words. It's presence or focus would be the one of those two. There's actually this experiment that I was doing with myself for a little bit. Right now I have a little cut on my thumb. I don't know if you can see that, but like I've been trying to just be as present as I possibly can, especially as I've been like trying to go down my own spiritual path more. And every time I'd look at that dot or cut in this case, it would be like a little mental anchor to be like, okay, like check in and be present
Mm-hmm.
again. And it's been interesting because I've noticed a lot of my fear around either things like consistency or building or growing or whatever it is, right? Like those begin to melt away more and more as we like just drop into the present. Like Eckhart Tolle has a really great quote, not quote, but books on this, like power of now, right? Like the only peace that we can find is here in the present. And like ultimately that's what all of our work is doing is helping people be more present. And so I would say like presence. I know that
Mm-hmm.
that might be kind of vague, but it weighs a lot for me.
I love it because I also feel like if you don't have the presence, it's not going to be as easy to focus. So I love that you felt like those two words interchangeably were very there. The more presence you have, the easier it will be for you to focus on the creative endeavors that you wish to birth into this world.
Yeah, well, I mean, all creativity is in the present, right? Like it's
Hmm.
you have your divine inspirations, right? But then immediately, if you're really channeled in with it, you're creating like right
Hmm.
there on the spot, right? And like if you really can tap into that and you can like really flow with that, like it's all happening in the present. There's nothing, and that's the thing is like there's literally nothing outside of the present. There's
Hmm.
illusion, worry about the past or sorry, worry about the future or lingering on the past. But like we let those go and we're just here. So
Yes,
not easy, but it is
we're
some
all.
higher up wellness.
That is very true. That is very true. I would love for you to share, and of course, I'm going to put everything in the show notes, but please feel free to share all of the beautiful things that you have going on and where people can join you.
So right now, the main community that has been growing a lot and I've been pouring most of my focus into has been the Making Peace Profitable community. So it's literally called Make Peace Profitable. It's on School, which if you're not familiar is a platform that's got a bunch of other amazing communities on there. And I would love it if you would be a part of ours. Um, right now, the tier is free. We're planning on putting some paid offerings in there soon for more like hands-on business help. And then the other one that I like literally just launched and we got our first member last night, shout out to Cole, is Modern Mystics. And that's going to be a community of people that are wanting to navigate the healing work and have like a more
Mm.
scientific approach to it and like a more consistent approach to it. That's a whole other topic. But that community is going to be my own like other passion project and, miniature business hustle as well.
Mhm.
But bringing people in and like having them experience like a very deep and real healing and then helping them integrate it afterwards, as well as like a
Mm.
community of other healers or other practitioners to talk about their work. So that way we can all kind of refine it and grow together is the intention at the moment. So yeah, you'll have links to both of
Yeah.
those.
Yes. And if you have TikTok, you need to follow Jacob on TikTok. I'm going to make sure that the link is there. This way you can join any of the lives that he does. They're incredible, all of the videos that come out. And there were really so many more questions that I had that I wanted us to dive into, but I knew you and I were just going to kind of sit and chat and go with it. So I'm sure there will be more time in the future where we'll get to discuss some more questions. And so thank you again for everything. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Many blessings to you and to yours.